Imagine for a second just standing out in the freezing rain for, I don't know, 4 straight hours.
Oh, absolutely not.
Right. I mean, it sounds miserable.
Wow.
And you aren't waiting for life-saving medicine. You're not even in line for front row tickets to your favorite band.
Let me guess. It's for a t-shirt.
Exactly. You are shivering on a city sidewalk for a basic cotton t-shirt with this tiny, incredibly simple logo printed right on the chest.
Which, rationally speaking, makes absolutely zero sense.
None. You can pull out your phone right now and, buy a functionally identical shirt for like $5 and it'll arrive at your house tomorrow. But I guess humans just aren't strictly rational creatures.
Really aren't. We're emotional. Deeply tribal, actually.
Yeah.
And that tribal drive completely overrides our logic when we interact with the modern marketplace.
It's wild. And that emotional ecosystem, that's our entire focus today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're unpacking this fascinating document titled Building a Brand That Inspires Change. Our mission today is to decode the secret DNA of these unforgettable brands. We want to figure out why some companies just, move inventory, while others manage to ignite these massive, sweeping cultural movements.
Because the gap between a traditional business and a true cultural movement is just vast.
Oh, for sure.
A business operates on utility, right? But a movement operates on belief. And understanding the architecture of that bridge is, it's arguably the most powerful tool in the modern economy.
Absolutely. And for you listening right now, whether you're an entrepreneur trying to get a startup off the ground, a creator building an audience, or honestly, just someone looking in your own closet trying to understand why you spent half a paycheck on a pair of sneakers.
We've all been there.
Right. This exploration is going to fundamentally change how you view your own purchasing habits because the core thesis we pulled from our source material introduces a huge paradigm shift.
It really does.
The most successful brands in the world aren't actually selling products. They're selling transformation.
Yeah.
You don't use brands to buy things. You actually hire brands to communicate on your behalf.
Yes, that concept of hiring a brand, it changes the entire perspective.
You're literally outsourcing your introduction to a t-shirt.
Exactly, because we live in an era of just unprecedented sensory overload. A person today is bombarded by, thousands of digital ads?
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Endless social media feeds, relentless promotional emails from the second you wake up.
Right. And the human brain simply cannot process that volume of data. It would break, so it adapts. It builds these aggressive cognitive filters.
So it blocks most of it out.
Exactly. Consumers no longer have the mental bandwidth to care about the technical specifications of a product. Not unless those specs are attached to a deeper meaning.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. So the brain filters out the noise, but it aggressively latches on to identity. Our source text points out that modern consumers demand to know the existential reason a company exists before they ever pull out their credit card.
They want the why.
Right. They're looking for values, not just features. So a person doesn't buy fitness apparel just because they need moisture-wicking fabric.
Nobody buys a $100 pair of leggings just for the fabric.
No. They buy the identity of becoming a disciplined, healthier person. Or, someone doesn't buy a wildly expensive mechanical watch just to tell the time.
Your phone tells the exact time down to the millisecond, and it does it for free.
Exactly.
Ah.
So what are they buying? They are buying the identity of achievement.
And what's fascinating here is the neurological mechanism behind this. It's incredible. When you buy into a brand's identity, you are actually experiencing a form of cognitive fusion.
Cognitive fusion.
Yeah. The brand is no longer just this separate corporate entity. It actually becomes an extension of your own self-concept. It triggers the exact same tribalism that kept our ancestors alive. Back in the day, displaying the colors or markings of your tribe signaled to others that you belonged, which meant you were safe.
So today, wearing a specific logo triggers that same dopamine release in the brain.
Exactly. It signals you're belonging to an in-group.
I really love that evolutionary angle. It just makes me think about how we navigate the world today. Because buying a product based purely on features, that's just a basic transaction.
It's an exchange of goods.
Yeah. It's like buying a train ticket. You just need to get from point A to point B. It has utility, sure, but it has no real meaning.
Right.
But buying an identity, that is like being issued a passport.
Oh, I like that. Expand on that passport idea a bit. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, okay, so a train ticket just gets you a ride. A passport, it dictates the actual borders you're allowed to cross. It determines the diplomatic protections you get. And fundamentally, how foreign entities treat you when you arrive. When you buy into a highly specific, culturally relevant brand, you're buying a cultural passport.
That's a great way to put it.
It grants you immediate entry into specific social circles. Like, it changes how a maitre d' treats you at a restaurant, or how a potential client perceives you in a meeting, all without you having to say a single word.
That is the exact sequence of connection. People connect with meaning way before they ever interact with the physical materials. The strongest brands out there, they transcend their supply chain entirely.
They become symbols.
Exactly. Whether it's a symbol of, say, unapologetic ambition or raw creativity or rugged resilience. The physical product is really just a souvenir of that belief system.
Okay, but since we've established the product is basically just a souvenir, how does a brand actually begin its life?
Well, it doesn't start in a factory.
Right, it clearly can't start with a CAD drawing or a fabric swatch.
Yeah.
The text points out that every meaningful brand begins with a problem, not a product.
Yep.
You have to find the friction.
To build a movement, you have to identify a specific frustration that exists in the world.
And these days, those frustrations are rarely physical anymore. The most potent pain points are deeply emotional.
Like what?
We're talking about a lack of confidence, or a feeling of being overlooked by society, a lack of self-expression, or just a deep deficit of authenticity in a particular industry.
The brands that actually inspire change look at that cultural landscape, find a specific emotional deficit, and engineer a solution.
They fill the void.
I hear that, but I want to push back on the mechanics of it just a little bit.
Sure.
Because it's incredibly easy to see how a brand solves a practical problem. If I'm freezing on that sidewalk we talked about, a heavy winter coat solves my problem perfectly.
Right. Physical problem, physical solution.
But how does a company actually solve an emotional problem? Like, how does a brand solve a lack of representation or a feeling of invisibility? A piece of clothing can't give you a hug.
No, it can't.
Yeah.
But it solves it through visibility and validation.
Huh. Think about the psychological weight of feeling ignored by mainstream culture. When a brand steps up and aggressively, unapologetically centers an ignored demographic, they act as a massive cultural bullhorn.
So they amplify the voice.
Exactly. If a beauty brand reformulates its entire line to cater exclusively to skin tones that legacy companies have just ignored for decades, they are no longer just selling foundation.
They're selling institutional validation.
Yes. They're telling that consumer, we see you, you matter, and we literally built this entire infrastructure specifically for you.
And that generates a completely different level of dedication, doesn't it?
It completely shifts the dynamic. You go from mere customer satisfaction to fierce emotional loyalty.
Because customer satisfaction is pretty fleeting, right?
Very. It's rational.
Yeah.
If a competitor offers a cheaper product, a satisfied customer will just leave. They'll take the better deal. But emotional loyalty, that is visceral.
It's anchored in gratitude.
Gratitude and shared identity. When a brand champions your very existence, you don't just buy their products, you defend them.
You become an advocate.
Exactly. And that emotional loyalty is the foundational building block for building an actual community.
Which naturally leads to the next massive hurdle.
Standing out.
Yeah. We have this emotional problem you want to solve, and you want to build this community. But how do you actually get noticed in an ocean of, like, thousands of daily social media posts?
It's noisy out there.
It really is.
Yeah.
But our source text claims you do it by doing the exact opposite of what most founders naturally try to do.
Which is such a counterintuitive strategy,
Yeah.
because the instinctive move for any new founder is to try and appeal to everyone.
Right. You have a business, you have overhead.
You've got bills to pay, so you cast the widest net possible, hoping to catch absolutely anyone with a wallet. It seems like basic survival math.
But the source says brands that create movements are terrifyingly specific.
Yes, they are highly focused, and they absolutely refuse to dilute their message for the masses.
I understand the theory of that, this whole unapologetic specificity thing. But practically speaking, doesn't that terrify a founder?
Oh, it's horrifying.
Right. You're essentially telling an entrepreneur to willingly alienate 80% or 90% of their potential buyers. How does the math on willingly turning away money actually work out in the real world?
The math works because deep loyalty is infinitely more profitable than shallow reach.
Okay, say more about that.
Well, when you try to be everything to everyone, your messaging gets so watered down that no one feels a personal connection to it. You become elevator music.
Pleasant but completely ignorable.
Exactly. But when you are hyper-specific, you create what the text calls a mirror.
A mirror.
Yeah. When you loudly and proudly broadcast a very specific set of values, you naturally repel the people who don't agree with you. And that is actually a good thing.
Because repelling the wrong people acts as a sort of homing beacon for the right people.
That's exactly the mechanism. It creates this psychological safe haven. When the right person stumbles across your hyper-specific message, they look into that brand mirror and think, oh, wow, that's my exact internal monologue. That's how I think. That's how I see the world.
Because the brand was willing to alienate the masses, that one individual feels a profound, almost intimate connection.
Yes. If you build a mirror designed to reflect everyone, it just reflects a blurry mob. It means nothing.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this mirror effect is really the defining line between an audience and a community.
That's a crucial distinction. An audience is just a group of followers who consume content.
They watch a video, they scroll past, maybe they leave a like.
Right, it's a passive one-way street. But a community requires active participation. It requires a shared set of rules and a shared identity.
And belonging is one of our most primal human needs.
Without a doubt. When a brand facilitates that shared identity, it transforms mere passive consumers into active advocates who actually want to recruit others into the tribe.
So to see this concept of the brand as a mirror in its most literal, tangible form, our source text shifts to the industry where identity, community, and commerce are just visibly intertwined on a daily basis.
Fashion.
We have to talk about fashion, and specifically streetwear.
Fashion is the ultimate testing ground for this psychology because clothing is this continuous, nonverbal broadcast.
Yeah.
It's a language you speak to everyone you walk past, whether you realize it or not.
And the text highlights streetwear as a prime example of selling identity over fabric. We aren't talking about the technical properties of the cotton in a t-shirt here.
No, streetwear sells the identity of rebellion, of confidence, and of in-group knowledge.
The sources even point to purpose-driven examples, giving a nod to brands like BK Clothing.
Right. They use their apparel to push a very specific mindset of resilience and overcoming obstacles.
Exactly. And look at the mechanics of a brand like that. They are just designing garments. They are engineering physical totems of a belief system.
And when you understand the psychological concept of enclothed cognition, it all really clicks.
Wait, enclosed cognition? What is that?
It's the literal effect that clothing has on the wearer's psychological processes. Studies show that wearing specific types of clothing actually changes your cognitive state.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. So when you put on a brand that represents relentless hard work and resilience, you are priming your own brain to act more resiliently.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because you're putting on the armor of that specific identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what strikes me about this dynamic is the heavy responsibility it places on the consumer.
It's a huge burden, actually.
When someone chooses to wear a highly specific, mission-driven brand, they're no longer just a passive buyer. They're physically carrying that brand's message out into the world.
They're a walking billboard.
Yeah. They're staking their own personal reputation on the brand's values.
And that is a massive psychological commitment. I mean, to convince someone to literally wear your beliefs on their chest, to let your logo speak for them in a crowded room, the brand has to maintain absolute, unshakable integrity.
Because the consumer is trusting you with their public identity.
Right, and if the brand betrays its own values, the consumer feels a deeply personal sense of betrayal, because their own social standing is now compromised.
But this raises a critical vulnerability, I think.
Oh, definitely.
Because if a brand acts as a pristine mirror for someone's core identity, what happens when that mirror cracks?
And it always does.
Right. Eventually, every brand being run by flawed humans is going to make a mistake. They release a tone-deaf ad, or a product fails, or maybe a founder says something controversial. Does a misstep just completely shatter the illusion?
Well, it would shatter a traditional business, but this is where the psychology of community acts as this incredible buffer.
How so?
The source material points out that people do not support these brands because they think the brands are flawless. They support them because they are authentic.
So they expect some bumps in the road.
Exactly. When a mirror cracks, it doesn't destroy the relationship, provided the brand handles the crack with humanity.
So owning the mistake actually proves the entity is real rather than just some impenetrable corporate facade.
There's actually a well-documented phenomenon for this. It's called the service recovery paradox.
Okay, what does that mean?
It shows that a customer who experiences a failure, but then sees the company fix that failure with genuine transparency and effort, they actually end up more loyal to the brand than if no mistake had ever happened.
Oh, that's fascinating. So the stumble actually strengthens the bond.
Because communities want to see the journey. They want to see the challenges, the admitted failures, and the growth. When a brand steps up, owns a mistake, and realigns with its core values, it proves to the community that the mission is more important than the ego.
Right. People connect with vulnerable humans, not perfect corporations.
Exactly.
Which brings us to how a movement is actually sustained over years, rather than just burning out after a viral season.
The long game.
Yeah, it requires a fundamental shift in what the leadership team focuses on. The text draws a really sharp contrast between the questions forgettable brands ask in the boardroom versus the questions legacy brands ask.
Forgettable brands are obsessed with hacking the algorithm.
Yes. They sit around tables asking, how do we manufacture a viral moment?
And chasing virality is the ultimate trap of the modern attention economy. Virality is just a spike in awareness, but awareness without meaning is totally useless.
You might get, what, 10 million views on a clever video?
Sure, but if those viewers don't share your core beliefs, they will forget your name the absolute second they swipe to the next post.
But while the brands playing the short game are chasing those spikes, the legacy brands, the ones creating actual movements, they're asking a completely different question.
Right. They ask, how do we create sustainable value?
And how do they do that?
They recognize that trust is built through just monotonous, relentless consistency. The core message of the brand must be repeated across every single touch point.
So no skipping the details.
None. The aesthetic of the videos, the tone of the customer service emails, the unboxing experience, the social media interactions, every single element must hum at the exact same frequency.
Because consistency creates trust.
And repetition builds recognition, and recognition builds deep psychological trust. You cannot inspire change if your foundational message shifts every month just to chase a new TikTok trend.
It is about consistent service to a mission. You don't build a cultural passport through shortcuts or generating empty hype.
Hype fades.
It does. Your product might be the flash that catches their eye, and your graphic design might make them pause their scrolling, but it is the underlying, unwavering mission that actually locks them in.
Think of it as the ultimate difference between a transaction and a transformation.
I like that.
A business optimizes for the exact moment the credit card is swiped. After that, the relationship is effectively paused until the next sale.
But a movement.
A movement optimizes for everything that happens after the purchase. The transaction is just the starting line. The real value is how the product echoes into the daily life of the participant, changing how they carry themselves and how they interact with their own world.
So what does this all mean? We've covered the psychology of the identity economy, the tribal mechanisms of belonging, and the power of unapologetic specificity.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But for you listening today, whether you are drafting a business plan for a new startup, trying to build a devoted audience for your art, or simply trying to navigate the hundreds of promotional messages you'll be targeted with by the end of the day, remember the core lesson.
Anyone with a supply chain can manufacture a product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But building a legacy means fundamentally changing how people see themselves. True influence isn't loud and chaotic. It is remarkably consistent and fiercely protective of its community.
We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing what our purchases say about us and how we hire brands to act as our personal spokespeople.
We've established that every logo we wear is a word in a visual language.
But here is a final, slightly different angle to leave you with today.
Let's hear it.
If the brands you wear act as a megaphone, broadcasting your identity, your ambitions, and your tribal affiliations to the world, what happens when you consciously choose to wear no brands at all?
Oh, wow.
If you walk out the door tomorrow in completely unbranded, anonymous clothing, what exactly is the brand of you currently preaching to the world?
Is the deliberate absence of a logo actually the loudest, most confident statement you could possibly make?
That's the question.
We will leave you to think about that.